Welcome, everybody. This is 2024 Kunekune Nutrition. We did this nutrition management webinar about 4 years ago. I think it's been 4 years. And at that time, my feed was $8 for 50 pounds. And right now it's $15 for 50 pounds. So we've doubled the feed cost. So that kind of prompted us to say, I think we need to do another nutrition webinar because I've changed things on my farm around that cost to try to make the inputs not as much, because that really doubles your feed bill if you're feeding the same amount. So I've kind of pivoted and changed some things. So we just want to share that with you tonight, what we're doing now. And I want to give a little plug for EKPA. I'm Carol DeYoung, president of EKPA. So some of the benefits of joining EKPA: you get your farm listing on the website. You have access to necropsy grant programs, soil testing assistance, free or discounted education webinars, such as the one we're giving tonight, mentorship programs. You get invitation and discounts to EKPA sponsored events, voting privileges at the annual meeting, and you're also eligible for EKPA mentoring and recognition programs. So it's a really great organization. Check out the website and see all the things that are available on there. We're also tonight sponsored by AKKPS, and they have a ton of information on their website as well. A lot of educational materials from A to Z, housing, you name it, farrowing, everything is on there that you could possibly want to research. So check them out as well.
All right. So the first thing that we want to talk about that we've added to our 2024 webinar is talking about body scoring. Body scoring is very important when you consider what you're going to feed your pigs and how much you are going to feed them. So with body scoring, it's very important that you have a visual of your pigs every day, that you're assessing them at some point every single day, that you're going to be looking for underconditioned pigs, pigs that are not gaining weight like they should. This is probably going to mostly be in your growers or piglets. You're going to be assessing overcondition. This is probably going to be a lot of your breeding stock, making sure they're not getting too fat. And you're going to do this by feeling for backbones, ribs, kind of guesstimating back fat along their back and the loin area. And the best way to understand body condition scoring is to study a condition scoring card. We've created one here at EKPA specifically for Kunekunes, because if you go and you Google, body condition scoring chart for pig, that's generally going to be for a conventional hog. And Kunekune, since they're a lard breed, they're going to be very different in scoring. Another really important thing about body scoring is just knowing your target weights. So having a good understanding about the breeding stock that you've acquired and, where they should be in their progress at growing as far as weight is concerned. You might have a sow whose, piglets grow a little bit slower. So you're going to watch those piglets and know that they might stay a little bit behind another group of piglets, but you're going to have that in the back of your mind, knowing target weights. So with goals, weight, and ages, you're going to want to look at your rate of gains. This isn't something that I do like with a scale anymore. I used to in the beginning because now I can eyeball. Carol does very similar. She can eyeball a pig and just kind of know about the weight. You're going to be looking at like 0.5 to 0.65 pounds a day is what your growers should be putting on in a single day. However, this can change based on what you're feeding them. For instance, right now, my pigs are in silvopasture foraging for acorns. And Carol's pigs are in her orchard foraging for hazelnuts, apples, and she's got hickory nuts that have fallen. And Carol and I are both seeing about a pound a day in gain with the pigs foraging on these things. So while this is a baseline, there are going to be times if you're feeding like really high protein, high fat content items that are just going to shoot their growth rate like sky high. That is something that you should be using for your advantage, because during this time of year, Carol and I are not feeding what we might feed in the winter time or what we might feed in the spring before grass is growing again, because we're using nature to feed our pigs. And so we're not throwing out as much feed, and they're still gaining, a pound a day. So weaning weights, you're going to want to see weaning weights around 25, 35 pound range. Some of us are seeing even more than that, especially maybe in smaller litters, or a piglet is double dipping on 2 or 3 teats. Your 6-month total weight average should be somewhere between 90 and 110. And then at 1 year old, target weight's going to be somewhere between 180 and 210 for a normal growing pig. You might not see that in a runt. You might not see that kind of growth in a pig that maybe had a bout with pneumonia. But for the most part, you should see these type of weight gains. So let's talk about body scoring. So we have a scoring chart on 1 through 5, 5 being obese and overconditioned. So your body scoring condition for a score 5, an obese pig, you're not gonna be able to feel any of their bones. It's just fat all over the place. With the firmest pressure on their back and on their ribs, you're not gonna feel anything. A lot of times their underbelly is going to be sagging quite a bit. Even sometimes a sow will look pregnant from the back because her udder is just hanging so low. And more than likely they're going to be fat lined. Just so much fat covering their face. Back fat is going to be 3+ inches. So if you were to butcher one of these pigs here, you're looking at 3+ inches easily of fat. So there's some problems with overconditioning. Overconditioning reduces fertility. So if you're having a problem with a sow settling and she's overconditioned, it's probably because she's too fat. Your boars that are overconditioned, they're not going to want to mount. They're carrying all that extra weight. They're not going to want to do their job. It's hard on their feet and legs. They're going to break down a lot easier. Arthritis can set in a lot faster. Interferes with their grazing. They're not going to be going out into the field as much and doing what they should be doing. They're going to be laying around near their huts or their water hole. It really reduces their quality of life, shortens their lifespan. And Carol's got a picture here of these 2. Are these your sows?
The
Boar?
boar was mine, and this was after he lost, I would say 75 to 80 pounds, because I was trying to get him down enough where he could breed, but he never did breed. The other sow was a friend of mine.
Okay.
She never did breed either. Just too fat.
Yeah.
Too much fat.
So the hang weight of the boar was 340. So he was about 490 pounds. That's very large for a Kunekune boar.
And it was mostly fat. I mean, there was very, very little meat. Even in the organs, they were all enclosed with fat.
Wow.
In the body cavity.
And then we have your body condition scoring 4. So I personally feel like that this is right where a Kunekune should be. It's definitely body condition scoring 3 is very acceptable, but body condition scoring 4 is just what we call perfectly round. You can feel their backbone and ribs with firm palm pressure, and they've got healthy skin, they've got a healthy coat, And if you were to take one to the butcher at a body condition scoring of 4, you should see somewhere between 1 and 2.5 inches of back fat. So we've got some photos here of some nice body condition scoring of 4. And then you've got another acceptable one here, a body condition scoring 3. They might be a little bit leaner. Backbone, ribs, and hips can be felt with palm pressure. They should have healthy looking coats, still shiny. And if you were to take one to the butcher, you would see back fat of somewhere between 1/2 inch to like 1.25 inches. So do you want to talk about this picture, Carol?
Yeah, sure. So this is a sow, one of my best, I would say one of my best sows. This is Cat, 2 weeks pre-farrowing, and I would call her in a almost perfect body condition score. Not quite a 4, maybe a 3.5. But it really, really does affect the ease at which they have their babies. We can probably go to the next slide, and I think I talk about that more. The healthy body condition sets the groundwork for excellent milk production. The piglets are easily born, so there's not a lot of stress during the birthing process. They grow faster with fewer falling behind when she does have that good milk production. You can see this mama has a really nice milk line. And the healthy body condition, it will decrease the issues at farrowing. Like I said, it improves the milking ability. It also gives them a stronger immune system, keeps the animal productive for far longer than an overweight animal would be. So it's better for her welfare. Again, good growth in large litters. She's got 11 babies here that she's nursing. It took them all to weaning, very even in size. Just overall health and increased lifespan when they're kept in a good body condition score. And body condition score of 2, very, very thin. The backbones, the ribs, the hip bones are visible and felt without much palm pressure. The hair coat is even wiry and thin, so they're struggling to meet their nutrients. And a lot of this sometimes depends on the stage at which the sow is in. This sow at the top right here, just coming off weaning, but she did not get enough nutrients, did not get enough feed during her lactation, so she's very, very thin. This one here on the left, I would be worried about. She looks like she's pregnant. She looks like she's pretty far along. She's awfully thin to go into having farrowing and then having nursing babies on her, because she will drop that condition very quickly if she is in that body condition. And then the body condition scoring of 1. Basically, these pigs are just in the starving mode. They're emaciated, their backbone, hip bones, and ribs are visible and defined. They actually feel sharp to the touch and the animals are sensitive to the touch many times. And their back and their hindquarters will often be arched because they do all they can to preserve that energy. And then again, the hair coat is very telltale sign. It looks rough. Sometimes it's dull. And sometimes they will blow their coats. They'll just lose their hair. And the back fat is non-existent on these pigs.
Yeah, there's just no fat anywhere. Yeah. If you were to take one to the butcher, there's just no.
I have actually butchered pigs in the body condition scoring of 1, and there was no fat under the skin or even inside of the body cavity, just 0 fat. It's really, really sad, quite honestly, because they really do need grain in order to keep that condition, or some kind of good inputs like Amanda was talking about, nuts, apples, something other than just forage. So this is what we call a starvation stance. This little guy was returned to me very undernourished. So there's a misconception, and it's still out there. We see a lot of people asking, do they need grain? This person actually had a petting zoo. This little guy was at a petting zoo, and her vet actually told her that Kunekunes do not need grain. So she was going by what her vet said to her and not giving him any grain. And he had very, very little pasture because he was competing with their horses, with their goats, with their sheep, everything they had in the petting zoo. And the grass was almost like a putting green. It was almost non-existent. So he could not get any nutrients that he needed. And this weight here, he was one of the ginger pigs that I showed you on that black sow. He's the same weight as he was when he weaned, and he's 10 months old here. Severely underweight. And I fed him for a while, got some condition on him, but you know, this type of he will never recover from this. The frame size, the bone structure is all laid down in that crucial first year. He did put weight on, but it really never grew well. I did a roaster out of him once he got a little bit of weight on him. And this is actually his sister, same litter, that litter with the black sow. Same age at 10 months old. She was 150 pounds. She stayed here. She had the proper feed, clean environment, clean fresh water, and on a deworming schedule. So she, you know, is growing like she should, and just an amazing, amazing difference between the two.
So let's review. We've got some pictures here of some piglets. So body condition of unhealthy piglets. These piglets are 1 to 4 months old. You're going to see right here on this piglet, it's got skin issues, underweight. We've got arched backs. This piglet here is suffering from probably a very bad, severe infestation of mites, which is a parasite, and it's going to draw everything out of their body nutrition-wise. They're going to have skin conditions, dull eyes, pale gums. Their bones are going to be visible. You're going to see lethargy. They're going to be lethargic, not wanting to move around much, and they're going to be prone to illness and chilling. If you see a lot of piglets just kind of standing around, not doing much, you know, they're probably freezing just from not having the right kind of body condition. Then you've got these pictures here showing you the body condition of healthy piglets. They're going to have shiny coats, bright eyes, pink red gums. They're going to be plumping around, and they're going to be doing zoomies. They're going to be playful, energetic, wanting to go out and feed, wanting to chase you down for feed. So very different you know, personality between an unhealthy piglet and a healthy one. And then your body condition of growers. So like Carol said, you've got this very important stages of growth in the first 6 months, especially, and then even up to a year old, where you want to make sure your pigs are getting the proper nutrition. So body condition of unhealthy growers, you're going to have them, you know, probably stunted from not getting the proper nutrition in the first 4 to 6 months, but you're going to see them actually starting to arch their backs. They're going to have those same really poor skin conditions. A lot of times you'll see a lot of greasiness behind the ears or in their armpits, pale gums. Their bones are going to be visible. They're going to be very lethargic, and you'll probably have a lot of like health issues with them, pneumonia and other things. Whereas you've got your body condition here of your healthy growers, where they've got, again, shiny coats, bright eyes, they're nice and round, pink gums, and they're playful and energetic and wanting to go out and eat all the time. All right. So the big question is on all of the pages is, do Kunekunes need a complete balanced grain ration? And they do. You have to give them some sort of grain ration. They've got to have some sort of input that's got lysine and protein in it, and some fat even. So what we encourage is it's very important to weigh the feed, because the weight of a mash is going to be different from a pellet. The weight of a sweet feed, which I don't recommend, but if you're feeding a sweet feed, that's going to weigh very different than a pellet or a mash, because it's probably going to actually be a little bit heavier because it's got molasses on it. But it's a very important to weigh your feed and not just throw out 2 cups, because 2 cups of feed of a pelleted feed versus a mashes feed versus like a heavier sweet feed is very different in its nutritional contents. And so you need to weigh the feed. And once you know the weight of your feed, you can properly, use your measurement. Like I know with my pelleted feed that my pigs normally get about a third of a 1 quart of feed morning and night. And that's the weight measured, dry measure of feed that I can feed. So make sure too, when you're selling piglets, that you mentor your buyers in this so that you don't get a pig back like Carol did. Not that this was Carol's fault at all, because the lady's vet, she was going by vet recommendation, but mentoring and letting your folks, your buyers know all the time, checking in with them, being a good breeder. It's important to make sure that your buyers, have the tools that they need to be successful, like you're being successful. So here we've got a chart on nutrition requirements with a grain ration. And we kind of want to put a disclaimer on this right now. This is a good starting point for you when it comes to grain. Like Carol and I said earlier on in the webinar, right now I'm not feeding 3 to 4 pounds a day for my growers, because they are getting a lot of nutrition right now from all of the nuts that they're eating in my silvopasture. I've got black walnuts, I've got hickories, I've got a few hazelnut bushes, and I've got lots and lots of acorns right now. And so I'm able to back off that feed and to feed to condition. So if I see in, 7 to 10 days that, the acorns are drying up, they've found them all, and they're not foraging as much, then I'm going to up my feed again to meet their nutritional requirements. So always feed to condition. This is a starting point. It's a suggestion. It doesn't mean that it's the Holy Bible of feeding Kunekunes. What's important is to always feed to condition. You're not going to want to feed a sow that gets fat off of air, 3 pounds a day. She might only need 2 pounds a day. She might only need a pound and a half a day. You want to make sure that she's getting fed to her condition. So this is definitely a great starting point for you. Effects on, nutritional requirements is going to be things like weather. In the wintertime, when they're using more calories to keep warm, you're going to see that you're going to need to feed them more, because otherwise they're going to start using their fat stores to keep warm. Stocking rate also. I find I have to feed a little bit more feed if I've got larger groups of pigs, because there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Competition. There's a lot of competition to eat all that feed. And so if I want to make sure that my slower eaters are getting enough, I'm going to be throwing out more feed to a larger group. So if you're concerned about that and saving, some money and resources, it might be best to put, smaller groups of pigs together so you have less competition. I like to keep all of my pigs in same sizes and ages. So if I've got a group of 20 pigs, I might split that into 2 or 3 groups in like sizes. And that will help me cut down on throwing out extra feed. Access to water is super important. Carol's going to talk about this more later in the webinar, but you're going to want to make sure you've got lots of water. Water is essential to the growth of your pigs. Bedding, housing, and light is super important to their nutritional growth. You want to keep your pigs well bedded down, especially in the wintertime. They're going to be eating in their hut when it's cold and windy. So make sure that you're throwing lots of forage, good hay in there. Carol's going to talk about that a little bit more in a little while. And you're going to find that your pigs are most comfortable and are going to eat the most and gain the most weight in that 55 to 70 degree range. When it gets above 70, you're going to find them laying around more, wanting to be in their wallows, not foraging quite as much, especially during the hottest parts of the day. So That's again a reason why sometimes in the summertime you can back off feed because they're not moving around as much and spending as much calories. So make sure you're feeding towards condition. Some of the things that are important in your feed is protein, knowing how much protein is in your feed, knowing how much fat is in your feed. Protein, I personally like to feed 18 to 20% protein. I think my feed right now is around the 19.5 range. And fat is important. You're not going to want to have like a high fat feed, like a show pig feed, or your conventional grower feed, because those are not lard pigs. I like to see fat in my feed be somewhere between the 3 to 4% range. Our pigs, Kunekune, still need fat. They just don't need as much fat in their feed. Fiber is important because it aids in digestion. You want to make sure that your feed has like a mineral pack in it. I know that a lot of mills where you can get feed from, you know, a local mill, I'm finding that a lot of them are not putting in a mineral pack. You're basically getting, you know, some soybeans in there, some corn, some salt, and that's it. So if you're buying a milled, you know, feed from your local mill, you need to make sure that they're putting in some sort of mineral pack. I like to use a sow pack because it's high in calcium and I can feed it to my entire herd, and know that my sows are getting enough calcium during lactation and gestation. Amino acids are super important. Lysine is the biggest one. Lysine is the amino acid that builds growth and muscle. And so I like to see like a 1.2, especially a 1 or higher, but my feed's around a 1.2. I think Carol's is as well, percent lysine. And that's just going to benefit mostly your piglets and your grower pigs. So if you're wanting a ration that just you can feed to your entire herd without having to feed this group this feed and that group that feed, you're going to want to try to get a high protein, low fat, high lysine feed. Something else that's really good to add to your feed is probiotics to improve gut health, and then ammonia inhibitors. And if you're having your feed custom milled, something that we don't have on here is a mycotoxin binder. There's one called Prohibit. There's another one called Myco Silencer. If you need more information on that, just email us and we can provide some of the names of those things. But mycotoxins can grow, unfortunately, in feed that is milled, especially, well, any type of feed can actually have mycotoxins in it. And you're going to want to have a binder in there that kind of collects those toxins as it moves through your animal so that it doesn't make your animal sick or hurt fertility. Mycotoxins can definitely impact fertility in your sows. And I'm going to let the queen of forage talk about forage.
Okay, so do kunekunes need forage? And my answer is absolutely, yes, they do, of some kind. Pasture animals, like Amanda said, her pigs chasing after the nuts and seeing the video there, they are in heaven. They are extremely happy when they can go out and search for their food. It lowers their stress, it reduces their health issues, they have reduced respiratory issues. They're hardier, their legs are more sound, and they just have an overall higher plane of nutrition. So quality forage comes from healthy soil. Soil health is the foundation of any pasture-based system, and it's crucial for the health of grazing animals. I encourage you, if you have a bunch of land or quite a bit of land acreage, to get a soil test done, and that will reveal what's lacking in your pasture, in your soil, and in your hay. I know for a fact that my soil is deficient in calcium and selenium, so I'm going to want to compensate that by adding nutrients to the soil or adding lime to the soil to make the nutrients be able to be absorbed into the plant. We have a low pH. All of New York State is very low pH overall, and that kind of inhibits the plant from taking up those nutrients. So even my hay is going to be low in vitamins and minerals unless I compensate that in the soil so that the plants are able to absorb the nutrients. I can improve my soil health by adding compost, rotational grazing. Frost seeding legumes out there actually helps improve the soil because you're getting the nitrogen fixation at the ground level. Lime and fertilizer can also be added to improve the soil. So some of the tips for successful grazing. This is kind of a review of the rotational grazing webinar that we did, but we'll go over it again. Forage availability. Pigs love that 3 to 8 inch range. Sometimes when you grow, for instance, like rape or radishes or turnips, they'll reach a little bit taller than that, but that's about their comfort range of what they like to graze. Palatability, you want to keep that forage young and growing right in that range. So if it gets taller than that 8-10 inches and they are not grazing on it anymore, the best thing to do is to go in there and clip it off with your bush hog or your mower and knock it down again, and then you'll get that nice regrowth, and that's what they really love to eat. Digestibility is best, obviously, when you have that new growth and that young growth. So I've been using kind of my sheep and my cattle to do this instead of using my lawnmower or my bush hog. I will run the cows in after the pigs have been through, and they will knock it down to that 3-inch mark. And then I pull the cows out and I just clip the weeds off, which has been working really well. And the sheep actually will eat a lot of the weeds that the cows won't eat. So kind of multi-species grazing and using my animals to work for me instead of putting diesel fuel in the tractor is what I'm kind of after there. Forage availability. You want to have your stocking density balanced with the number of animals in there with the available forage. So keep that in mind too. And then rotate your pastures between high protein is usually you get the protein from the legumes and the energy from the grass. So if you have a pasture that's all grass, you might want to put older animals in there and your younger animals in the legume pastures so that they're getting the higher protein because they're going to need that for their growth. And then always keep in mind water, where the water is, have access to shade, to wallows, and just tons and tons of water in all different kinds of containers or in pools or some way where they can get clean water, because that's super important, especially during the hot months. Rotate your deworming schedule if you can. 28 days between grazing periods will break that parasite cycle. I kind of don't have that option here. I have a lot of small paddocks right down where our home place is. So I often don't get 28 days between the grazing periods, but that's kind of an important number to keep in mind because that'll break that parasite cycle. Otherwise, you have to be thinking about deworming more often during the months where they're going to be on pasture. And then, of course, provide shelter, shade and shelter at all times appropriate for whatever the weather is. And there are people who have kunekunes who don't have any pasture. That's fine. The dry lot alternative is to provide forage of some sort that they're going to enjoy. Winter in the north is 6 to 8 months, so we kind of got to match a nutrient dense forage with whatever stage of production they're in. I think these are Amanda's pigs. They're eating chafy hay here, right out of the bag.
Yes.
And actually just digging in and chowing down on it. They actually love that. So balance the ration to make sure that it meets the need for energy, for protein, for fat, for minerals, and for vitamins. And then provide some kind of forage as a filler and also as a nutritional supplement for them. So winter feeding, I have the option to make my own hay. So I'm kind of lucky that way. If it's not good hay, then it's my fault. But things to ask and to look for when you're buying hay. The first question you want to ask is, when was it cut? If it was cut early in the season, or if it was cut like in July and August, it's probably something that your pigs are never going to eat. So when I see people say, you know, my pig won't eat hay, or what kind of hay will they eat? They want to eat early hay, like you're seeing next to my tractor tire. I know your pigs are going to eat that, right? It's full of clover, very little grass. They would chow right down on that. So they kind of know what they like, but I think by visually assessing the hay and the forage, I think you can kind of get an idea of what they would like. Also, you can ask if the fields were fertilized and limed. Was the hay tedded? Because a lot of times when you fluff up the hay in the drying process, you're going to knock a lot of those leaves off. Did it get rained on? If it got rained on, you don't want the hay. Ask if the wagon, if you're buying it off the wagon or if it's stacked in a mow. I would prefer it to be stacked in a mow because it actually breathes better. It cures better in a mow. Off of the wagon, it's kind of shoved in there at all different angles unless somebody is stacking it. I have a kicker on my baler, so it just is kind of shoved in there at all different kinds of angles. So it really doesn't have the opportunity to cure well. And then the size and the density of the bale. How much does the bale weigh? If you're paying $7 and it only weighs 30 pounds, you're really not getting, should weigh 40 to 50 pounds, sometimes even 60 pounds. So all those things are going to affect what your hay quality is and what your hay price is. Look for seed heads, seed pods, and that means that the forage is mature. You want a nice leafy, like this third cutting right here on this lower right-hand corn. It's very soft, almost 100% leaf, very few seed heads, hardly any stem. And I think your pigs are going to love that. It's got a nice bright green color. Usually color goes hand in hand with a higher vitamin count in there. And you also want to avoid weeds, mold, wire, twine. Touch, feel, and smell the hay. If it smells like fresh mowed grass, your pigs are probably going to love it. If it's musty or moldy, don't buy it. So we kind of touched on this. Amanda kind of talked about alternative supplements. Obviously, fruits, nuts, and berries, if you have them. I say in moderation here, because we are not dumping out 5-gallon buckets. The pigs are having to walk. I think my pigs walk, if they go down below to the apple trees, it's probably a quarter of a mile. They walk quite a ways to go to the apple trees. They eat for a long time. Then they come home and they sleep for a long time. But I have the option to have that available. I also have nuts falling. So it's just, fall is a great time to pack on weight. And I'm not packing on fat. They are actually having a nice lean muscle growth. And it's awesome because I can dial back the feed. I can save a lot of feed cost by having that available. There's a lot of people that do a fodder system. I actually thought about doing this in the winter. In the middle picture here, barley, oats, or wheat, but it's very incredibly labor intensive. And then silvopasture, and Amanda touched on that quite a bit too. But again, study your conditions charts. You don't want to give them anything rotten or moldy, and know your target weights. So these are pictures of what I have available. Hazelnuts, apples, and pear trees along all of the borders. I've kind of worked over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years to plant things for the pigs that they would like, that would come in season in the late summer, fall, into winter. I actually have crabapple trees that hang on to the apples until December, Christmas time. So, and they're still falling. And the pigs, you walk out there every day. It is quite a walk, but I figure they're getting out there. This lower right picture here is actually in December. The grass is kind of dormant and yucky looking, but they're out there walking, they're digging through, they're finding little fruits out hidden in the grass yet, maybe nuts, and they're just healthier being active. So water quality, I can't stress enough how much water plays in the role of growth. If you offer pig feed and expect that it's going to drink water that has been stale and yucky and a day old and expect the same growth, you're not going to get it. You have to put fresh water every time you feed, morning and night. Sometimes in the middle of the day in the summer, I'll go around and fill water dishes again. These two here on the left, as soon as I poured the water in the dish, they ran over to drink. Even though they had feed on the ground, yet they wanted the water in order to digest the feed at the same time. Make sure you have adequate access. These little drinkers, this blue one here on the right, I have that on a hose, pressurized hose. I have hundreds of feet of hose out there, so it automatically fills on a float. When they drink, it fills back up. And just take my hand and scoop it and clean it out. It works awesome. I also have dishes and pools if they need pools in the summer. And alternative waters, if you don't have the option to have something close by, or if you can only fill water, if you can fill these every other day or every couple of days, these are options that work as well. You're going to want to clean them, make sure they're clean and temperature appropriate. But also keep in mind, I'm not sure if your short snouts can operate the nipples there, and I'm not sure the short necks can reach into those watering tubs. So make sure you check that too. Some of the resources, you guys can check these out. I won't go through that, but these are some of the resources that you can look into. And then we have this plants that are toxic, just for your information. Again, I do have some of these in my pasture, actually in my lawn. But if the pigs have good quality forage available, they do not go after these things. And this is just a guide for some inclusion levels. Like a person says, hey, I want to use field peas. You can see field peas should be only included in the diet as 20% of the diet. Very good protein source and very high in energy. But some of the inclusion levels. So questions or comments? I think we had one in the chat box. Somebody asked, what is the brand of the self water? Actually, you can go on Amazon, and they have a stainless steel one, which is the one I am using now. I think it's Little Giant, and it's an awesome, very rugged, that stands up well to the pigs and it doesn't rust. So I've gone to using the stainless steel ones, and they hook right to a garden hose. And the pigs love them. Even these little babies at 4 weeks old will be drinking and drinking and drinking. Okay, Laura Garrick says she has one from Bellin. Yeah, they're awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? Any comments? I think we silenced them all. So just sharing what has worked for our farms. I've been doing Kunekunes now for 10 years and have made a lot of adjustments, a lot of changes. Obviously, the cost of the feed is a big change. Kind of shocking when it's double the cost as it was 5 years ago, but you just kind of have to adjust and pivot and do things that work for your farm. The drinking post was another one that I looked at. You have to let us know how they work, Lauren. I don't know at what height they will be for your Kunekunes. That was one thing that I wondered. But I'm excited to hear how they work.
I have a picture of what I just made this summer, Carol, that I could share with people.
Okay,
Let me get it opened up on my computer.
yeah, so Lauren, you can unmute if you want. So the one that they show in the actual ad, it seems like it's super high. Like they have a Duroc, I think a Duroc pig drinking out of it. But even he is having to reach up and strain his neck to, so it's like, just drop that thing right into the ground, right? Drop that thing low.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. So I called them and their reasoning for why they say to keep it at least 10 inches above the ground has to do with dirt and stuff getting in there.
Uh-huh,
And I guess I just kind of figured the opposite as far as if it was too high, they might be trying to kind of climb on it and
right,
that would be
right,
messier. So we're gonna try to have it where they can basically just walk up and push on it.
right,
I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have to play.
right, right, at their nose level, or
Yeah.
if you made some kind of a ramp that went up to it, or a deck even, that would
Right.
work
Be
too.
kind of like a pad
Yeah,
that's kind of elevated. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So kudos to you guys with the grant information because it's actually a grant funded project through who's it through? American Farmland Trust. So
Awesome.
very exciting.
Okay, congratulations. I'm
Thank you.
excited for you. You'll have to share how that goes.
Yeah.
And this is awesome. So they have a huge hose bringing tons of water in there.
Yeah,
Really
this is Kinsey's setup,
Okay.
because she doesn't have running water to where the pigs are.
Okay,
I ended up building a lot of these. So this is like a 100-gallon tank from TSC, $69. And then 2 of the stainless steel waterers from Amazon. I think they were like $25 each. And then if people are interested, I could see if I can get the supply list together, but we've got like toilet connectors there that are running into the tub, drawing water out, and there's a float in there. So I basically have 4 of these right now that I'm using, and they're really great for piglets and the young growers.
right,
And I just go in with my hands and I scoop all that water out twice a day.
right.
Because their noses get, the feed and dirt up in there. But man, they love this.
I have several, right. I have several of those too, and they are super easy. Your hand is just the exact right shape to just plow that mud out of the bottom, because it does get a lot of mud in the summer anyway. And the mat underneath will protect the ground from getting all sloppy right there. So that's awesome. Great setup. So we have a couple of people that want the materials list. So that's something that,
Okay, yeah, I'll get that put together and we'll send it out with the slides and the replay whenever Felipa has time to get that up on YouTube.
yeah, probably be after the show.
Probably.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, thank you for joining us tonight. And as always, if you have questions that you think of later, or if you need more information, please reach out.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.